Have you ever noticed something strange about yourself? When plans suddenly get canceled, you don't always feel disappointed. Sometimes you feel relieved. It's as if a weight quietly disappears from your shoulders. You finally have permission to return to the place where you feel most comfortable. Alone. Most people would call that introversion. They'll tell you that you simply enjoy your own company, that crowds drain your energy, that you've always been independent. And maybe part of that is true. But psychology suggests there may be another story hiding underneath. A story that didn't begin last year, or in your last relationship. It may have started long before you even understood what loneliness was. Think back to childhood. Not every difficult childhood is filled with shouting, violence, or obvious trauma. Some are remarkably quiet. A house can look perfectly normal from the outside, while still feeling emotionally unpredictable on the inside. One day you felt understood. The next day your feelings were ignored. Sometimes someone comforted you. Other times they were too busy, too stressed, or too emotionally distant to notice what you needed. Children don't analyze these moments. They absorb them. Every small experience becomes another lesson about how the world works. Without realizing it, your brain begins asking one simple question: what keeps me safe? For some children, the answer becomes obvious. Don't expect too much from people. Don't rely on anyone for comfort. Learn to handle everything yourself. At first, it isn't loneliness, it's adaptation. You discover that books never reject you. Your imagination never criticizes you. A quiet bedroom never suddenly changes its mood. Little by little, being alone starts feeling predictable. And predictability feels safe. Years pass, school changes, friends come and go, you grow into adulthood. But something interesting happens. Although your life changes, the emotional blueprint inside your brain barely does. Because the human brain is designed to remember whatever once protected it. It doesn't ask whether the danger still exists. It simply repeats the strategy that worked before. So when someone begins getting emotionally close, when a friendship deepens, when a relationship becomes more serious, a quiet signal begins to appear inside you. Slow down. Be careful. Don't depend on them too much. Most people never hear those words consciously. Instead, they simply feel an unexpected need for distance. They cancel plans. They reply a little later. They spend another weekend alone. Eventually, they stop questioning the pattern altogether. This is just who I am, they tell themselves. But what if that's only part of the truth? What if your love of solitude isn't simply a personality trait, but an old survival strategy that your nervous system never realized it could finally let go? Psychologists have a name for this pattern: avoidant attachment. It sounds clinical, almost as if it's describing a disorder. But that's not what it really means. It simply describes a nervous system that learned one powerful lesson very early in life. Depending on people can be risky. When you were a child, that belief protected you. It helped you avoid disappointment. It helped you stay emotionally stable in an unpredictable environment. The problem is that your brain doesn't automatically know when the environment has changed. It keeps running the same program, even decades later. That's why someone can genuinely care about you, and yet part of you still wants to pull away. At first, it's almost invisible. You suddenly become busier than usual. You need more time alone. You start focusing on their imperfections. Small habits begin to bother you. Conversations feel emotionally exhausting. Without realizing it, you're slowly creating distance. Not because you've stopped caring, but because your nervous system is quietly trying to prevent pain before it ever has the chance to arrive. To your brain, leaving first feels safer than being left behind. Keeping people at arm's length feels safer than risking disappointment. That's why solitude often brings such a deep sense of relief. When you're alone, nobody can misunderstand your intentions. Nobody can suddenly withdraw their affection. Nobody can unexpectedly change the emotional atmosphere around you. Everything becomes predictable again, and predictability feels like safety. But here's the part most people never recognize. Beneath that independence, there's often a completely different desire. The desire to feel understood, to trust someone completely, to stop carrying every emotional burden alone. These two parts quietly compete with each other. One part longs for closeness. The other has spent years believing that closeness eventually becomes pain. The result is confusing. You genuinely enjoy being alone, yet sometimes You also feel an emptiness that solitude can never fully satisfy. That contradiction isn't weakness. It's evidence that two different survival systems are pulling you in opposite directions. The remarkable thing is that this same childhood adaptation also gave you extraordinary strengths. People who learned self-reliance early often become incredibly observant. They notice subtle emotional shifts that others completely miss. They read people's moods almost instinctively. Many become highly creative because imagination once became a place of emotional safety. Others become exceptionally calm during difficult situations because uncertainty has been familiar for most of their lives. These qualities aren't accidents, they're the gifts hidden inside your survival strategy. But every strength has a shadow. The same walls that protected your peace can also prevent genuine connection. The same independence that made you resilient can quietly convince you that you must face everything alone. And that's where healing truly begins. Not by tearing those walls down overnight, but by recognizing that you built them for a reason, and realizing they no longer have to protect you from everyone who walks into your life. Real change rarely begins with one life-changing conversation. More often, it begins with a single moment of awareness. The next time you feel the urge to disappear, pause for a second. The next time someone genuinely cares about you, and your first instinct is to create distance. Pause again. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with this person?" try asking a different question. What is my nervous system trying to protect me from? That small question creates something incredibly powerful, a gap, a tiny space between the feeling and your automatic reaction. Inside that space, you finally have a choice. For years, your brain reacted on autopilot. Now you have the chance to respond with intention. This doesn't mean forcing yourself to become outgoing. It doesn't mean saying yes to every invitation. And it certainly doesn't mean giving your trust away too quickly. Healing isn't about becoming someone else. It's about realizing that your old survival strategy no longer has to make every decision for you. You can still love quiet mornings. You can still enjoy spending time by yourself. You can still recharge in solitude. None of that needs to change. The question isn't whether you enjoy being alone. The real question is this: are you choosing solitude or are you hiding inside it? Because those are two completely different lives. One is freedom, the other is protection. The child you once were made an extraordinary decision, with limited experience and limited emotional support. They found a way to survive. They built an inner world that nobody else could control. That child deserves compassion, not blame. Those strategies carried you through moments you couldn't have handled any other way. But you're no longer that child. You're no longer living in that same emotional environment. The people who enter your life today are not automatically the people who disappointed you years ago. Some people truly are dependable. Some people stay. Some people know how to care without making you earn it. The hardest part isn't finding those people. The hardest part is believing they're real. And that belief grows one small decision at a time, not by forcing yourself to trust everyone, but by giving yourself permission to stop assuming that every close relationship will eventually become another wound. Maybe you've never been afraid of people. Maybe you've simply been loyal to the survival strategy that once protected you. And perhaps the next chapter of your life doesn't begin by learning how to love solitude less. It begins by discovering that you no longer have to face the world completely alone. If this video spoke to you, leave a like, subscribe for more psychology insights, and share it with someone who may have spent years believing that being alone was their only safe place. Sometimes, the greatest form of healing isn't changing who you are. It's finally understanding why you became that person in the first place.